You know, this is the most outrageous spectacle I've ever witnessed, ever. There's only one thing I wish. I sure gotta pee. And this ain't nowhere to go. I believe we're gonna go up the country a little bit right now.
It all started as a dream of freedom and rock and roll. The year was 1969, and the 3 days of music and peace in the Woodstock Farm near New York, USA, one of the first and arguably the most famous music festival of history, have ever since become a symbol of youth, rebellion and independence. But clearly, economic interests were also part of the scene. If the massive amount of people to feed meant a great return for local shops and farmers, the promoters themselves lacked a business plan, and the event turned out to be a financial disaster. The situation could not be more different nowadays. Music tourism constitutes a well-oiled and precisely organized industry. Figures released in May this year by the umbrella organisation representing the UK's commercial music industry, UK Music, say large-scale live music events across the UK attract at least 7.5 million attendances by domestic and overseas music tourists. The report shows that music tourists have collectively spent almost £1.5 billion during the course of their trips. These figures make music festivals something very different from the hippie experiment that they were in the 70s. If Woodstock turned into counterculture pride, festivals have now turned into a totally profitable business. One might even get the impression that they have actually become events designed for rich kids. Tickets are expensive and can get even more where appropriate measures against touts are not taken. I have travelled to the town of Benicàssim in the south coast of Spain, in Valencia, which has been hosting one of the biggest music festivals in Europe for the past 15 years. Headliners this year were Americans The Strokes, British Arctic Monkeys and Primal Scream, and Canadians Arcade Fire. The festival attracts people from all over the world, but the local tourism office says most of them are young Britons. A quick search for flights from UK airports to any Spanish destination connected either via train or bus to the town of the festival would not return any cheap options. And then is the accommodation. And food and drinks, they don't come cheap either. When bought on site, half a litre of water costs around £2.50, and in festivals like Benicàssim, people are not allowed to bring in beverages from outside. Officially, the aim is that of tackling drugs and limit the amount of alcohol consumed, but it doesn't seem too unrealistic to think that, given the numbers coming into play here, business does play a part in this kind of policies too. No wonder that entrepreneurs have put their eyes on the sector, and no wonder the market itself has started to believe in it too. For many young Brits, it's a matter of finding the perfect combination of sun, music, and unlimited partying with friends. Some of the people I've met in Benicàssim seem to have changed their mind over this being a convenient option, but most of them still seem to think that a ticket priced at around £180, which includes 9 days of camping, is a good deal, especially if compared to the price of UK festivals.
It's a bit expensive, but overall, if you're getting a festival and a holiday, it's not too bad.
The ticket's cheaper than UK festivals. It is a good deal because you get a holiday out of it rather than a rainy field.
It's worked out cheaper than going to a festival in England.
Well worth the money you spend, so it is. Fantastic holiday.
English festivals next year though, because it's cheaper. Once you bought all the planes and everything, it gets a bit expensive.
It's not cheap, but it's worth it.
Drinks and food hasn't been that expensive.
We're thinking next year of going to a hotel because there's more aircon and we just can't stand the heat.
The town of Benicàssim seems to be literally taken over by fevers, as the people taking part in the festival are called. But as one of the tourist officers working in the centre of Benicàssim, Esmeralda Faciaben, says, this invasion is considered no more than a side note compared to the amount of money and publicity that comes from it.
Without the festival, we couldn't have that people here in Benicàssim. We are very, very happy to have the festival here. It's a way to advertise Benicàssim, to know Benicàssim around the world. Benicàssim sounds around the world, the name of our village, and it's because of the festival.
She says shops, restaurants and almost the entire region owe everything to the presence of the festival.
Some shops, little shops, is the most important income for them during the year. Maybe not for the hotels, because all of them, most of them are open all year long, and I don't think the festival is the main income for them, but for some little shops it is.
So high season is festival season, even though most young people prefer not to use their budget on hotel rooms, which can become very pricey during the 4 days of the event.
Most of people prefer to be in the campsite, I think, because it's free, first of all. The hotel is not so cheap these days. It's more or less the average is about 80-90 euros per night. And then they have like a party 24 hours a day. And but I think it's hot because of the sun.
And it is hard indeed. What I have witnessed is that many people start their adventure in the camping area, but end up looking for a proper accommodation as the days proceed. This is also because festivals tend to last longer than they used to, and with a full 4 days of music starting at 8 in the evening and going on until the early morning hours, like in the case of Benicassim, sleeping on a hot, dusty and hard surface can easily prove too much. Apart from the traditional ones, there are also a number of new businesses revolving around the needs of festival goers which have recently seen the light. Entrepreneur Drummond Gilbert, for example, has founded a website called GoCarShare.com.
It's a car sharing website that matches passengers and drivers, and predominantly we're kind of focused on music festivals, so we're working with a lot of big festivals and it helps people share car journey. It also helps the festivals reduce the amount of cars on site.
He says his business, which is less than a year old, is growing fast, thanks to social networking and the constantly increasing popularity of festivals.
We have over 50 festivals that are promoting it. Last weekend we had 500 people create requests and 1,300 messages. It's growing really fast in terms of kind of users. It's growing about 35%, 34% month on month.
Technological innovations have made it easier for organizers to get bigger and bigger numbers of people gathering in the same place. And also smartphones made it easier to target their audience with a number of apps. Managing director at music consultancy Howling Monkey, Ben Bleed, says these are the perfect tool for festival organizers.
Festivals like apps because it gives them a chance to stay in touch with their attendees before and after the events. Artists in particular are starting to use apps because they can't be pirated. Bjork's just released an app which had loads of each. It had her album on the app, so you bought the app and then that's that.
Does it have to do with money or publicity?
Bit of both. I think there's a novelty factor because there are lots of iPhones, but people are still getting iPhones and getting content onto them and downloading an app. I seem to download about an app a day, not necessarily paying for it, but just an app.
He says there is also a psychological factor coming into play when people download and use this kind of apps, and this positively adds to the experience.
I think the best way to describe it is the way human beings relate to objects psychologically and emotionally. So it's like, this is my equivalent, I've got a book, it's my app, it's never my website. You just visit the website, so there's a little bit of an ownership thing in that.
Festivals are now more than ever fundamental gear for the music system, and especially for emerging bands. The manager of one of the hippest acts of the summer, Australian four-piece Cloud Control, Greg Carey, says there is no doubt about the role played by these events in boosting promotion.
Basically, music festivals are a fantastic outlet for a band to be exposed to a wider audience, especially the festivals which have a massive following. Over here you've obviously got the big summer ones across the UK and Europe like Glastonbury and Roskilde, and sometimes those little festivals and boutique festivals in themselves are great for a band like Cloud Control too, because they don't have 15 different stages, they've only got quite a few, and so they maximise the audience.
He says the system is often complicated because loads of new bands wants to be booked, but the spots available are limited.
More commonly you have a booking agent who will be speaking to the promoters of those festivals, and they negotiate you getting on that lineup and the fee that you get and where you are on the billing. Now, to get onto a festival, kind of the level of the bands I work with, you need to have some runs on the board, so to speak. So you need to have product that you're pushing, i.e. a new album out. You need to have a certain amount of following and buzz about you.
Greg says taking part in festivals has ultimately become a necessity because of the evolution of the music system.
I think the music business over the last 10 years or so has evolved into something quite unique, and each band has different wants and needs, so it's a very hands-on job.
But managing director and music consultancy Howling Monkey, Ben Bleed, goes as far as saying that actually music festivals owe part of their popularity to the digital era.
Music festivals also benefited from illegal downloading because people weren't paying for the music, so they were getting the music and then they wanted to go and experience it live. The money that people weren't spending on the music, they were then going to spend on tickets.
The real father of the current idea that we have of music festivals is an Irishman named Vince Power. Born in 1947, he started his career in the music business in 1982 when he opened a small venue in northwest London. Irish musician Leeson O'Keefe, who used to play in seminal Irish band The Pogs before founding his own called Neck, remembers the days when Power started his adventure.
He had a venue called the Mean Fiddler, which was like the Irish venue, along with the Archway Tavern and the Swan in Stockwell. The empire grew from there.
It's in 1989, though, that Power moved on to the festival business by taking over the organisation of Reading Lees, and then in 1990 by launching his first Creature, a festival of Irish music in Finsbury Park, London, called The Flaw, recently renamed Fesh. Leeson says that Power used to be a relevant figure for the Irish community in London, but his Celtic heritage now seems to be a mere selling point for a product.
When the Flower started, it was a chance for the Irish community to express itself and say, yeah, we're here. With the Fesh now, it does seem to be a lot more of a calculated music making.
What started as a hobby grew into a multi-million-pound business. In 2005, Power became involved in Benicassim Festival, with the 2007 edition selling out for the first time in its history. At the end of June this year, he has embarked on his latest adventure, floating his company, Music Festivals Plc, on the alternative investment market on the London Stock Exchange. Business analyst Struan Malcolm says that the aim is basically a simpler version of the stock exchange.
It's a market that enables smaller companies to access capital by floating their shares on the stock exchange.
The launch of Mr. Power's company on June 28th was successful, and all shares for a total of over £6 million were sold. Power had vowed never to return to the public arena after a previous attempt to go public 6 years ago had failed. But, as Struan says, the economic climate has changed, and so have investors.
His timing would appear to be good because his business has a better track record, and investors 6 years ago, this wouldn't have been a great choice relative to all the other choices they had. Now, investors are finding it very difficult to find anything that goes up. So if they can find something that's new, that they didn't have access to before, that they think is a growing business, bingo.
Mr. Power said that he now intends to expand his portfolio of festivals. From a financial point of view, this move seems wise.
You would actually manage to save a lot of cost. All your administrational costs, you've got the same person organising all of the suppliers, you can share resources, and so it goes on. This is why companies merge in the first place.
Vince Power seems to have brought the business of music festivals to a whole new level, challenging other festival promoters who will most certainly keep their eyes open on his next moves. But Power's empire is also very personalized. His relationship with the bands and his name, which has become a trusted brand for investors, are elements which raise questions about what kind of future such company might have without him. In the meantime, tickets for Benicassim 2012 are already on sale on the festival's website at a special discounted price for early buyers. It all started as a dream, but hopefully for investors, this business won't fade just as such.
Muchas gracias.